Hello, welcome. I'm Robin Smith, and we're here in the Healthy Relationship Sisterhood Facebook group, or maybe you're watching me on YouTube or Instagram. And today I am talking about overreacting, whether it's you who's overreacting or somebody else you're in relationship with. And we're going to look at different ways people might overreact and why that happens, like the root cause of that. And then we'll talk about what to do about it, how you can start to shift the pattern. So say hello if you're here live or watching the replay. You can put #replay. Let me know you're here and let me know where you're listening from so we can have a conversation. And feel free to ask a question in the chat anytime. I love to engage with you. So we're looking at overreacting and pulling up my notes. I've got a new technology situation I'm working on here. All right, so 3 types of overreacting that I see. And when I mean overreacting, it's sort of like when you know that was a lot, or your reaction causes a lot of reaction in the other person, and then bad things happen. So everybody has reactions. Reactions are normal. We might get defensive. We might feel hurt. But we're talking about when your reaction is really big and then problems get created in the relationship. In fact, let's add that to what we're looking at today, which is what the problem is with overreacting. But we'll start with what I see as like 3 main types of overreacting that I see in my clients. So one might be that when something happens that's, that you don't like, or that it hurts you or feels like it triggers something in you, you might respond with a big response. You might get really big. You might get controlling, trying to change the other person. You might get blaming, pointing the finger. You might cause a big uproar, get very confrontational, argumentative, defensive. So that's one style of overreacting. And you can put an "I do that" in the comment if that's you. And the second style that I see is sort of the opposite, where you shrink, you get really small or diminutive. Maybe you cry, maybe you feel kind of inward and contracted. Maybe you complain and whine. It's not me. I don't know why this is happening. This is so hard. So there's sort of like more of a victim versus the first one being more like a villain. So you can put victim if that's common for you, if you find that pattern. And let's just say right now from the start, let's not add any judgment to this, because we all pretty much do all the things and we have our kind of go-to style. So I'm inviting you to get curious around your style without adding judgment to that and making yourself bad or wrong. Okay, so you can put "I do that" or villain if you tend to do the first one, or victim if you tend to do the second. And for the third, it's sort of another extreme, which is a shutting down, a cutting off contact, getting really quiet. Maybe you storm out of the room. Maybe you just distract yourself and just don't talk and break eye contact. So that would be a third one, where you disconnect. So if that's your style, you can put "disconnect" in the comment section. And I'm just going to peek over there and see if we have people in here saying hello. Okay, not yet, but I will look forward to that soon. Okay, so let's talk about the problem with overreacting in these ways, and then we'll look at why that may be happening and how to make a shift in that. So the problem with these kinds of overreactions in general is that they cause a disruption in your ability to connect. They're causing a lot of distance, a feeling of a break of a connection. If you've been following me on Instagram lately, I've been talking about rupture and repair. So they're going to cause a rupture. And a rupture is anytime there's like a disconnect between you and you don't feel close and you feel like you need space, or you create space by doing the uproar or the overreaction. So that's the main problem with it. And then from that place of distance and disconnection, it can be harder to reconnect. So you can end up taking a lot of space. Some people tell me we didn't talk for 3 days. So it can be harder to repair, to come back together when you've had that kind of rupture. And the third problem that I see with this is that when overreacting is common, if you know, like, I'm not going to say that because she's going to overreact or he's going to overreact, then what happens is you end up withholding information. You might hold back your truth, and that causes a further disconnection, a further distancing from your partner. And so that's a problem. It also feels like it undermines trust, because you don't trust that you can work stuff out with somebody who's always making a big uproar or disconnecting from you. So these are the issues that I see with this overreaction. So let me know if that feels familiar. If you see those problems too, you can say yes to the problem in the comments section. If you notice more distance, it's harder to come back together, and less trust between you when there's a lot of overreactions or big reactions in your relationships. Okay, so let's look at the why this might be happening for the person who's overreacting. So again, there's reaction and there's big reaction. So I'm talking about the kind of the all too common overreaction right now. And so generally the source I see in this is trauma. And for sure, if there's been a trauma, like when people go off to war and they're fighting in battles, they come back with a very dysregulated nervous system, and they have PTSD, and they're easily, triggered into like reacting and they don't even necessarily know why, and they can't control it. So that's one extreme example. And for most of us who haven't been off to war, there's other reasons that are also trauma related from early life, from childhood, womb time, or infancy, where stuff happened where you didn't get the kind of attention that you needed. Maybe you didn't get much nurturing. Maybe you were ignored or neglected. Maybe you weren't wanted in the womb. Maybe your sibling got more attention. Maybe they were sick and you weren't, or maybe your mother was ill or in the hospital. So there can be lots of reasons that were unintentional and not abusive that were also traumatic to you. And what happens when those things happen is you learn that to adapt to it. You learn to adapt to a mother who's always depressed or working all the time and unavailable, or doesn't, listen to you, or who punishes you, or maybe does abuse you. You adapt to that with your own strategy for getting what you need, basically to stay connected to the caregiver. And so that might mean you get attention by making great grades, or being a star football player, or maybe you get attention by being sick all the time. Maybe you get attention by being really needy and having lots of issues. Maybe you get attention by having tantrums. So if you learn to get attention in those, what I would call more negative kinds of attention, like I've just been sharing, you might keep that pattern going. So that would be more related to the sulking pattern as an adult, the getting smaller, getting victim-y, complaining, coming up with reasons that something's wrong with you. And so you're seeking attention, and you don't know how to get it in an adult, grounded, positive way. You have to use this strategy to get your attention. So we may not realize we're doing this. So again, I encourage you to be gentle with yourself, be compassionate with yourself around this. If you're going, oh man, I do that. And you can put an oh woman if you're realizing I do those things and I hadn't realized it. And so other ways you might have coped are these other styles that I mentioned earlier. Maybe you get really big and controlling, and maybe that's what you needed to do. Maybe that was a strategy, or probably is a strategy, if you were overly controlled as a child, if your parents were abusive or very very controlling of your every move, and basically you had to do what they said, and you didn't really get a lot of personal choice, and you didn't get to exercise your will, then you're going to be more, potentially rebellious, confrontational, doing what you need to assert your will and feel like you have charge of your life. So that's one adaptation that you might still be carrying out right now, and why you might be more confrontational and more like rebellious against authority and things like that. Put a me too if that's making sense for you. And I'm going to just see, I feel like I saw a comment come through. Hi Nalini, good to see you. Thanks for saying hi. And if anyone else is here, I welcome you to say hello and let me know where you're listening from. And you can do that if you joined late and you're watching the replay as well. So we've talked about a lot of reasons why you might have these big reactions, or, and I'm going to actually go back to the last one, which is the one where you tend to shut down, cut off contact. Maybe you go silent, maybe you kind of withdraw and go inward a lot. So you might do that if that was your go-to as a child. So if you had a lot of neglect or even abuse as a little one, or even in the womb, you weren't wanted, maybe you were put up for adoption, maybe you were given to foster care, maybe you just were one of 10 siblings and you kind of got forgotten. If you cried a lot and tried to get attention and you were ignored or neglected, your strategy may be to just not have any needs and not really sort of get invisible, because it feels safer than the pain of having a lot of needs and them not getting met. So it's a good, at that point, it was a good strategy to shut down, get quiet, and disappear. And so you may still have that strategy now. And so you could put disappear in the comments if you realize that that's your strategy now. So let's look now at how to start to shift, what to do if you want to shift this. This is honestly not just a quick fix. So we're dealing with old patterns that have been in place for a long time and that served you for a time. And so it's not easy to just go, okay, I'm done with that pattern, because it's in place for a reason. And it had felt like a survival need to you. So first thing I would honestly say is I would recommend getting support from a therapist or counselor or relationship and trauma coach like me, someone who can hold your hand and walk you through it step by step. And it takes time to unwind these things. And it's not just like I give you a tip and then you go, heal all your childhood wounds. So that being said, I'm going to give you some tips, and these are things that you can keep in mind and work on at your own pace and start to notice your own habits, and also start to have more awareness about, about these habits, and also to see where you can start to, fit in maybe something new, something different, to step into a new way of being in response to when things get difficult. So let me look at that here. So what to do about it is, first thing I would say is, when you are one of these people who feels not important, who feels not worthy, who feels not good enough, and honestly, most of those three styles that I talked about are going to have some of this, then the important thing to work on is your self-worth and your sense of I have value, I deserve to be here, I deserve love. And so that's like your worth, your self-esteem. And so two things you can do for yourself on that is well, again, get support from a professional ideally, but also connect with people who do love you and support you. So you get that reflection back. Okay, I am liked, I am loved, I am worthy. And as you develop those relationships, it really does help your sense of worth, because you get it reflected back regularly. People appreciate you, they want you in their lives. So that's so important. And the other thing you can do for yourself is to just remind yourself of your values, to shine a light, like a flashlight, on those parts of you that you like, whether it's your sense of humor, or your wit, or your the way you are a good listener. Whatever those traits are that you appreciate about yourself, remind yourself of those, so you're not always reliant on other people to build you up, but you start to build yourself up and start to feel intrinsically worthy without having to prove it to anybody. So that's one. Another one that pretty much everyone can benefit from is helping your nervous system. Many of you have studied with me, and I know that I teach various tools for balancing your nervous system. And so this is really important for most of us, but especially when you've dealt with developmental and complex trauma like I've been talking about, or even a shock trauma, especially a shock trauma also when you've had a car accident or an assault, or someone died suddenly and it really took you down. Your nervous system is like needing some support to stabilize again. So some grounding techniques, whether it's a long exhale or giving yourself a hug, we call it like a 2-minute hug where you just settle in, or you get a massage, take a bath, whatever works for you to calm your system and help you to feel present again, is really going to help you when you're in one of those intense situations and you have this impulse to have a big reaction. The more grounded you are, the less likely you are to overreact. Okay, so put a yes, I want to ground myself, if that resonates with you. And then the third one, which I think, again, for most people could benefit from this one, is taking responsibility for your experience. So part of what happens in these earlier examples I gave, when you tend to overreact or someone else tends to overreact, is they tend to point the finger outward and blame other people for their feelings or their experiences or the problem that's happening. And when you do that, it's sort of an ungrounded thing to do, and it will cause more disruption in the relationship. But also, it doesn't give you a sense of power if you're giving your power away to others for causing you to be upset, causing you to be angry or hurt, or whatever the feelings are that you're having. So the more you can point to yourself and recognize, okay, I'm the source of my own feelings, I need to take responsibility for that. Even if someone did something mean or rude, it doesn't mean you have to have those feelings that you had. So the more you can own that, those are your feelings, maybe someone else would not respond the same way, then you're going to feel more empowered, and you're going to have recognized that's yours, and no one else can ultimately make you feel or act any certain way. So that's going to help a lot in all of those situations. So that's what I wanted to share. I see a comment here, so I'm going to respond to that. So she says, then there's the know-it-all attitude. You betcha. Who's a know-it-all? Who loves knowing it all? As I've gotten to know my partner's lovable mom, I do see a pattern of having all the answers, which, while helpful at times, can also be irritating. I hear you. Yeah. It's like when someone's a know-it-all, there's not a lot of room to connect with them, because it's almost like a wall. That's how I experience that. It's almost like a wall's up, and I want you to like this about me, but then we don't get to know the real you when you know everything. It's sort of like you're impenetrable. Give myself a hug, and she says, yes. Great, thanks for your engagement here. So happy you're here. Yeah, she says it's real helpful to see it as a generational pattern. I agree, it is, because a lot of this does get passed down. We are not the source of our trauma. We are innocent. We are out of control of our lives when we're little. We don't have any power over ourselves. So we are at the effect of the adults or the environment in our lives. So we don't have to blame ourselves for the trauma that happened or how we reacted to that trauma, because we had to figure out some way to survive it, and we did our best. But now, as the adult, you you can recognize that you can make a new choice about that, even though you couldn't make an intelligent, wise adult type of choice then, you can now. And so that's the good news, is you can take your power back. Yes, take your power back. Put that in the comment. Yeah, the sense of self-worth and the genuine love of my partner. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And great being with you as well. So if anyone wants to share, I welcome you to put that in the comment. And I have a little exciting news, and that is I've been working on my website. Oops, that's my mic drop. Oh, I've been working on my website, which is so exciting. I dropped my mic and shook my whole screen. And so I've been updating things, and I'm taking a new business name, which is just mine. It's been super simple. So it's Robin with a Y, Smith.net, robinsmith.net. And go right now, it's forwarding you to my older site, but I've done a lot of updates. You can find things more easily. It reads better. I'm working on it. So it's definitely a work in progress. And eventually I'll switch over to the new site. But if you go there, you're going to see there's a button at the top for my guide to the 3 biggest relationship mistakes. And so if you want some of this in writing and more about how to communicate clearly and effectively, I invite you to go to robinsmith.net and grab that guide right there. And then you will also get notifications from me about future free trainings and other free goodies. So I invite you to check that out and let me know what you think. And let's see if there's anyone else here before I sign off and go get some dinner. Mic drop. Yeah, the last part about being able to make the choice. Totally, right? We all want to be empowered, and it's so difficult to not feel powerful. And of course, there's so much that we don't have control over. So that which we can control is really awesome when we recognize that, and we develop that ability to control what we can and let go of the rest. That's the best. All right, you guys, thanks for being here. Thanks so much. And feel free to tag a friend if you want them to see this, to share this video with others, whether you're on YouTube or my Healthy Relationship Sisterhood Facebook group. I invite you to share it with others and let them learn what you're learning. Thank you, and bye for now.